Welcome, everyone, to the 20th episode of True Love. This is your host, Maya, and I hope you're having a beautiful day. Today's episode is titled, True Love is Intentional. If you're new here, glad to have you at the True Love podcast, where we apply the love mindset for personal growth. And to those of you returning, welcome back. I appreciate your continued support. So let's jump right in to today's episode. True love is intentional. Now, just to give a quick review. In the first episode, we discussed that love is not an emotion, but a choice. You choose to love. You choose to commit. It is a conscious decision. So when I say true love is intentional, what do I mean by that? And that's what we're going to dive deep into in today's episode. We're going to define what it means to be intentional, and we're going to look at this from a different perspective versus looking at it from the normal perspective that we have. I want us to dive deep and think about, are we being intentional in our relationships? And using the love mindset, how can we improve our relationships by being intentional? And as you know, with all episodes, everything that we discuss today will be backed by my source of faith. And since my source of faith is biblical, we will be backing these up with biblical scriptures. So let's define what intentional means. Intentional is defined as done on purpose, deliberate. Very simple and quick definition. So being intentional about something means it's a purpose, it's an objective, it's a plan, it's an aim, it's a goal. So when we say true love is intentional, what does that mean? Well, when love is intentional, it allows love to grow and to flourish. You make a purposeful commitment to be there, make an effort, and love in all circumstances. Being intentional in a relationship means you have decided to be invested in the relationship. And this builds stronger, long-lasting relationships, and it creates intimacy and a deeper connection in your relationships. And in the love mindset, the whole goal is to cultivate healthy and successful relationships. So, I want to ask you a question. And I want us to all be honest. And it's okay if we pause the episode and think about the answer to this question before we move on. Are you intentional in your relationships? What do I mean by that? Do you prioritize those you love? Do you schedule quality time with the ones you love? Do you tell them how you feel by expressing your affection for them? If your answer is yes, then keep doing what you're doing and let's review where you can improve. However, if you answer no, then let's see how you can become intentional in your relationships. So before we jump in to how we can become more intentional in our relationships, I want us to go to the first scripture of this episode. And the first scripture of this episode is 1 John chapter 3, verses 16 through 18. And we're going to be reading from the NIV version of the Bible. So again, we're reading from 1 John chapter 3, verse 16 through 18. NIV reads as follows. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Now, I want us to consider what this scripture is saying. It's saying we have seen an example of what true love is. Christ laid down his life for us. So shouldn't we also lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters? Now, I know that some people may say, are you trying to say I should die for my brothers and sisters? No, I believe this is figuratively. It can be literal, but figuratively, it's really being figuratively said. Because the next sentence is, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? So to lay down your life doesn't always mean literally lay down your life. What does that mean? That means that we should be able to sacrifice sometimes the things that we need or the things that we want. We should be able to part with our possessions. We should be able to help our loved ones out in their time of need. Especially when it's in your position to do so. Especially. So most people will think that this means financially. It could be financial. It could be, just being an active listener. It could just be giving sound, godly advice. It could be giving them a place to stay. It could be giving them some food to eat, some clothes. Whatever that sacrifice is when you're in the position to help. There is no way that you should see someone in time of need and be able to just be like, not my problem. Oh, well, that's bad for you, but I'm good. That does not cultivate healthy and successful relationships. This scripture is simply encouraging us to be engaged in our loved ones' lives, to actively be there for them and support them. To start off by saying, this is how we know what love is. It's giving you an example of what love is. And if you claim to love someone, you should be doing these same things that love calls us to do. This is why the love mindset, which is the God is love mindset, is so important to cultivating healthy and successful relationships, for growing them, for flourishing them and nourishing it. So I want us to go in, now that we have reviewed the first scripture of this episode, I want us to go in to the ways we can be more intentional, for those of you who are already doing it, and for those of you who may not be doing it at all, the ways on how we can become intentional in our relationships. Number one, be engaged. Make dedicated time, eliminate the distractions, and listen attentively when your loved ones are talking. Let me give you an example. And I'm going to just use myself as an example. Sometimes I'm watching one of, the TV shows that I like. I'm not much of a TV watcher, but there are some shows that I do enjoy. So with the shows that I do enjoy, sometimes my children want to come over and talk to me, or my husband wants to come over and talk to me, and I'm, enjoying the show. I'm invested in what's happening in the show. And then they say they want to come over and they want to talk about something. I have two options. I could say, you know what, I'm kind of busy right now. Let's set some dedicated time and talk about what you want to talk about. Or, in most cases, because I'm usually not watching live TV, it's usually Netflix or Hulu or something like that, I just simply pause the show and say, you know what? My loved one is in a time of need, and I'm going to make the dedicated time. I'm going to eliminate the distractions. I'm going to pause this show so I can actively and attentively listen to listen to them and find out what's going on. Number two, have open and honest communication. Oftentimes, when relationships are in the early stages or just beginning, sometimes people are not honest. They're not completely honest about what their intentions and expectations for the relationship are. So you're starting a relationship, you're entering into a relationship, and you don't even discuss the intent of the relationship. Are we going to be friends, business partners? Are we courting each other for the eventual hope of marriage? What is the intention of us starting this relationship? So in those beginning stages, when you're being open and honest, and even throughout the relationship, you still need to be open and honest and have that open and honest communication. Because this gives you the opportunity to express how you feel and discuss your hopes and needs in the relationship. And I'm just going to tell you from experience. When you go from courting/dating to marriage, those needs may change from courting and dating to marriage. When you go from marriage and it just being you and your spouse, and then it goes to having children and adding people to that relationship, your needs may change again. So your needs and your expectations may change as you go through the various stages of your life. As things change, as you mature, as you grow, your needs and expectations may change. And the reason why having this open and honest communication is so necessary is it makes sure that it keeps you both aligned and that you both remain on the same page. Even if this is a family, it makes sure the family is aligned and you are all on the same page. When you keep the communication lines open, it allows you to have touch points in the relationship as needed. So we don't wait until something becomes huge. We don't wait until something becomes like a big problem. At the moment that something is happening that we don't like, or something is happening that we see can be a pitfall or a downfall in the relationship, we should be talking about it and expressing how we feel about it, having that open and honest communication. Number 3, show them love. You know, this sounds so simple, yet if you speak to anyone in most relationships, it could be a parent-child relationship, it could be a business relationship, employer-employee, or boss, to worker, or manager to, a subordinate. Sometimes people just say they don't show any love. Like they don't express their affection or their appreciation towards you. And then sometimes people say, oh, well, you know how I feel about you. And someone might say, no, I don't know how you feel about me. That may not be a dishonest comment. It may be, hey, you've never expressed. You may have thought you've shown it, but you've probably never said it. You may think you're showing it, but you never really state where your mind is at. When I have my evaluations at work, you might not say, I appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. Something that simple. Do you express your affection and appreciation towards your loved ones? So show them love. Don't say to yourself, oh, they know how I feel. They may not know how you feel. So to nip that in the bud, make sure you tell them so that there's no question, there's no doubt about how you feel. Because sometimes that's what ends relationships as well. Because of the lack of communication and the lack of showing and expressing how you feel in your relationships. Number 4, take care of yourself. Remember that you are responsible for your own happiness and that your relationships are not responsible for making you feel good about yourself or happy. You have to work on you. And when you start working on you, you become a better version of yourself. And not just on a personal level, but this helps you to also be better in your relationships because you're going to be more intentional in your relationships. And people may think it's cliche or, oh yeah, that's an old time phrase, but there's truth to this old time phrase. You're no good to anyone else if you don't take care of yourself. So yes, love is sacrificial sometimes. Sometimes we have to lay down our lives for our brothers and our sisters. But it doesn't mean we completely forget about ourselves. Because we all know Jesus said to love your neighbors as you love yourself. So it is important to still take care of yourself, even when you're laying down, your life in a figurative type way. Figuratively, not literally. You don't do it to the point where you lose yourself, because then you're no good to yourself or the relationship. So you still have to work on you while you're in the relationship. And sometimes being in the relationship helps you to work on yourself, because no one knows you better than the people you spend the most time with. So if we go back to last episode where we talked about true love corrects, sometimes while we're being intentional in these relationships, someone may correct us. And this will be part of the take care of yourself step. Now let's move on to number 5. Be integral. And I just want to start off by saying something that Jesus said. Let your no mean no, and your yes mean yes. Don't agree to things that go against your values and your morals, or that you know you have no intention of actually doing. Remember, in relationships, be your true, authentic self. You don't need to be what this person expects you to be, but at the same time, they have expressed their needs and expectations. So be integral and be honest about if you can fulfill those needs and those expectations. Don't commit to things you know you're not ready to make a commitment on. Because then that's being unintentional. That's your intent is not to hurt them, but you're unintentionally hurting them. Because if you know this is something you cannot provide, I give you an example. If, you're in a dating or courting stage and someone says, look, I am doing this, I'm dating and courting with the hopes of getting married. And if you're not at that space in your life where you're ready to make that commitment, you should say that in the beginning. You should say that before it gets too deep. We have to be intentional in our relationships, and the way that we can be intentional and purposeful is to be integral, to remain that level of integrity within ourselves, that we mean what we say and say what we mean. And last but definitely not least, number 6, take action. And what do I mean by take action? You got to spend time together. You have to focus on creating a deeper connection. By doing activities together, planning date nights, having family outings or family events, etc. You have to spend time together. And you have to focus on really creating that deeper connection. Because that is the whole purpose of the relationship, is to build a deeper connection. Another part to that is supporting each other's goals. So you need to encourage one another, And how can you do this? You can encourage with advice, with a good sound, godly word, by helping them accomplish their goals, by being an active listener. Because sometimes people don't want advice. Sometimes they just need someone to hear them out, to listen to them, to be engaged. But supporting each other is a big deal, because there's going to be times when I'm going to be in need and I'm going to need to lean on you. And there's going to be times you're going to be in need and you're going to have to lean on me. Lean on me when you're not, when you're not strong. We have to support each other, especially when it's in our power to do so. And sometimes supporting each other could be as simple as just being there for them in their time of need, letting them know everything's going to be all right, everything's going to work out. We just have to sit here, think about it, and come up with a plan or work on the solution to the problem. And another part of taking action is to rise above conflict. Because we all know when you spend time with people, sometimes a conflict is going to arise. Why? Because we may not agree on approach. We may not agree on how to move forward. We may not have the same perspective. We may not be in agreement on something. Does that mean the love dissipates? Does that mean it disappears? No. You have to learn to rise above that disagreement or conflict or issue that has arisen. So, what I mean about rise above the conflict, what I mean by that is approach disagreements with facts and truth, being constructive rather than destructive. Put yourself in the other person's shoes so that you can understand their perspective rather than proving them wrong. Because sometimes in relationships, and if you don't believe me, you can ask married folk out there. Sometimes in relationships, we don't agree on approach. We don't agree on the next step to take. Sometimes it could be family related. It could be a personal goal, a family goal, a couple goal, and we don't agree on the approach. And what tends to happen is sometimes we can let our attitudes flare and we just say to ourselves, I know that I'm right. I know that I'm right. But did you consider your spouse's point? Did you consider your loved one's point? Or were you more focused on proving them wrong? And this is where you're intentional in your relationships. Because it's not just about you. When you're in a relationship, it's about you and the person or persons you're in the relationship with. It doesn't matter if it's personal or business. If it's the board and we have all these board members, you got to rise above the conflict. You may not agree on approach. So they may have to bring it to a vote, and you may have to let it go that the vote didn't go the way you wanted it to. Whatever rise above the conflict means for you, whatever type of relationship it is, put yourself in the other person's shoes rather than proving them wrong. And if you approach it with facts and truth, you can eliminate things getting more heated and turning into an argument and turning into a shouting match, because you have learned that you should have open and honest communication. So all these steps worked out together will also help you to rise above the conflict. And ultimately, all three of these things, spending time, supporting each other, and rising above conflict, is all about taking action. So when you are in a relationship and when you love someone, you should naturally want to spend time with them. Naturally. If you're starting a business together, you're naturally going to have to spend time together to get the business up and running, to get the business off the ground and to make it profitable. Personal, you got to spend time together to get to know each other. Support each other's goals. If this is business, the business has a mission, it has a goal. Let's support the mission statement of the company. Let's support the goal of our loved one. If they said, hey, I want to write a book, support them, encourage them. They could be feeling, like they are not qualified because they never wrote a book. It's not about if you ever wrote a book or not. The fact that you said you want to write a book, I'm going to support you. What can I do to help? That's the approach, So just think about these things when you're in your relationships. Are you being intentional, and are you applying these 6 steps in your relationship? Now, I will review the 6 steps before we close out this episode, but I just want to go to our second and final scripture of the episode. And I want us to go to James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. Again, that's James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17, NIV, reads as follows. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm and well fed," but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. So I just wanted to end with that scripture because step number 6 was about taking action. And when you take action, I'm going to just tell you the way it is. Action speaks louder than words. You can say something all day, but your actions are going to support if you really feel that way or not. Your behavior, the things you decide to actually do, is going to determine if what you said is how you really feel. And that's why I said we have to be integral. You have to mean what you say and say what you mean. And that should be followed up by action. It shouldn't be, "I love you, but I don't show no love." I love you, but I'm not engaged. I love you, but I put all the burdens of my inner work on you. We got to think about these things when we're in relationships. So, in review, I just want us to go over the 6 steps of how to be intentional in your relationships. Number 1 was to be engaged. Number 2, have open and honest communication. Number 3, show them love. Number 4, take action. Number 5, be integral. And number 6, take action. So as we close out today's episode, I just want us to think about how we're applying intent to our relationships. Are we being purposeful? Do we have an objective or a plan for our relationship? Is there a goal or an aim we're trying to achieve? Because remember, you chose to love this person. You chose to enter into this relationship. You chose to be committed. You made a conscious decision to love. You made a conscious decision to step into the love mindset journey, to build deeper relationships, to draw a closer connection to God, to apply what you learn in the God is love approach to your relationships, to apply the wisdom, to apply the knowledge, I should say, from your faith to your relationships. So I hope that this episode was informative, gave you clarity on what it means to be intentional in your relationships. And what's so funny? I was thinking about, when I started dating. And my dad used to ask, the guy that I was dating or going out with at that time, "What are your intentions with my daughter?" When you think about that, a father asking a young man, what are your intentions with my daughter? He's recognizing in that moment that love should be intentional. He's asking that young man, what is your purpose for taking my daughter out? What is your purpose for entering her life? He's asking that at the beginning. So that's something that we should think about as we're entering into new relationships, as we examine the current relationships that we have. Are we being intentional? Because you may have to improve some relationships, or you may have to let some go. And that might be a tough pill to swallow right now, but only you know what is needed to be done in your life as you approach this love mindset journey and you're taking the steps to be more intentional in your life. Only you know what is required, what change is required. So again, I thank you for listening to this episode today, and I hope it gave you value. If you feel like it gave you some clarity, informed you on some things about being intentional in relationships, feel free to share, like, subscribe. This channel is all about making you become, or helping you become, a better version of yourself at your own pace and at your own time. So again, I thank you, and I hope that you go and spend time with your loved ones, and go and enjoy this time with your loved ones. Spend time with your family and your friends. Do something that you like to do, because doing this inner work sometimes can be intense. And you have to let yourself know, as you work on yourself, continue to do the things that bring you joy and bring you peace. Continue to spend time with your Father in heaven. Continue to make time for your faith. Continue to become a better version of yourself. So I love you guys. I hope the episode gave you value. And remember to let your love light shine everywhere that you go. I love you guys. I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Take care.